We're following breaking news out of the Middle East, where Israel says one of Hamas's leaders who was killed in a strike in Gaza City on Friday. He was one of the last senior commanders in Hamas's military who helped plan the October 7th attack. Meanwhile, with the war with Iran in its third month and with no end in sight, President Trump told Sean Hannity this week that he no longer views seizing Iran's enriched uranium as a priority for national security.
They said there's no way that anybody can ever get down to the nuclear dust.
Do you think it's...
But I'd still rather have it. I'd rather get it. I just feel better if I got it, actually. But I think it's more for public relations than it is for anything else.
But those comments stand in stark contrast to what the president had been saying about seizing Iran's uranium and the purpose of his war this entire time.
The USA will get all nuclear dust.
100%.
Okay.
They're going to stop. And they told me that we're going to get the dust. I call it the nuclear dust.
Where are we in the war if we've not yet gotten the nuclear materials, the enriched uranium from them?
Well, we'll get that at some point, whatever we want. We have it surveilled. If anybody got near the place, we will know about it, and we'll blow them up. We'll blow them up.
The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I think about one thing. You cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all.
Despite this major about-face, he also floated the idea of needing to do, quote, cleanup work in Iran. He also claimed he only did the ceasefire as a, quote, favor to other nations. Jenny Welch and Lara Seligman are back with us. I know we spent this whole time talking about nuclear dust and all this other stuff, but I want to, this gets to the larger issue about what the heck is happening with Iran. Listen to what the president had to say on Sunday, an interview with Sharyl Attkisson about whether Iran has been militarily defeated.
On Iran, would you say the war is over? Is it paused, or is it very much active?
Well, they're militarily defeated. In their own minds, maybe they don't know that, but I think they do because I deal with them. And we cannot ever let Iran have a nuclear weapon. But they are militarily defeated. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft weaponry. They have no radar.
And yet, the New York Times reports on Wednesday, Iran still fields about 70% of its mobile launchers across the country and has retained roughly 70% of its pre-war missile stockpile. According to the assessments, that stockpile encompasses both ballistic missiles, which can target other nations in the region, and a smaller supply of cruise missiles, which can be used against shorter range targets on land or at sea. Jenny, that doesn't sound like Iran is militarily defeated.
No, I think Iran's quite far from that. And even if you don't go based off of those assessments, even if you don't look at the missile stockpile, you just look at their ability to hold traffic in the Strait of Hormuz at risk with drones, with fast boats, with other asymmetric tools. And this is something we've seen in recent weeks, even under this so-called ceasefire, where they're able to take out vessels or at least deter them from trying to move through the strait. And that's a capability they're likely to retain for the foreseeable future.
I want to... This Bret Baier interview that Trump did was really interesting. There's lots of things. I want to first go to the pain tolerance question from Bret Baier to Trump. Listen to this.
So why are we where we are? Did you underestimate the pain tolerance that Iran has?
I didn't underestimate anything. We hit them unbelievably hard. Look, we left their bridges. We left their electricity capacity. We can knock that all out in 2 days. 2 days, everything. We left Cargill, and other than, I said, hit it except for the valves where the oil comes out. Because when you hit that, that means you're going to lose a little oil.
Just a little oil. All right, in all of your reporting, I've read it, so I know what you're going to say. But for our viewers at home, did the United States government, under Donald Trump, underestimate the pain tolerance that Iran was going to have?
I think Donald Trump himself did underestimate it. I think that the U.S. military, their job is to provide options. And General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he and Admiral Brad Cooper, the head of U.S. Central Command, surely they provided a myriad of options. And I am 100% positive that the Strait of Hormuz came up and the possibility that Iran could close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it seems like Donald Trump decided to go ahead and launch this war despite that. So clearly he thought that the military could decimate Iran before that point could happen. But now I would argue that Iran is actually in a better negotiating position than it was before the war. It's proven that it can completely control the traffic through the strait with, as you said, the asymmetric threat of just drones, fast boats, cruise missiles, and it's not going to give that up anytime soon.
Donald Trump not listening to experts. Who'd have thunk it?
Jenny, then I'm wondering, when Trump first came out and said, I guess the day after, the night of, we went to war with Iran, that this was going to take 4 to 6 weeks in and out, done. Did you... What was your gut reaction? I mean, did you think he was lying?
I didn't think he was lying, but
I think that's what a lot of our diplomats thought.
I think he might have genuinely believed it, and to Laura's point, I think he was under the impression, and I think mispercepting, the amount of not just pain tolerance in the Iranian regime, but also their resilience, their ability to replace senior leaders rather quickly with people who in many cases are more hardline. And I think what this conflict has shown, much like our earlier conversation on China, is we've once again given a U.S. adversary the opportunity to learn how much leverage they have and what a choke point that they can control. And that's what's happened in the Strait of Hormuz, exactly as Laura said. Iran now has more leverage after 3 months of war than it had beforehand.
One of the things that I talked about last week, remember, it was like we're talking about gas prices and how high they are. At what point are we going to start talking about oil shortages? And there was a story I was just trying to find. It's probably coming up later in another hour. But there's now some concern about whether the world will have enough oil. Now, the story says that oh, it is. Oh, we have it. How about that? Element 6. The world is burning through its oil safety net. In a report titled The Illusion of Plenty, J.P. Morgan Chase estimated that if the strait remains blocked, stockpiles in a group of wealthy nations could plunge to, quote, operational stress levels early next month and to system-straining operational floor level by September. The bank said it doesn't expect inventories to actually reach those levels because history suggests demand would be curtailed first. And so I see you nodding, Jenny.
We've thought a lot about this.
Okay, so given your expertise and where things are right now, how soon should Americans expect to hear the government tell them that we're going back to 1977 and if your license plate ends in an odd number, you go on this day, and it ends in an even number, you go on this day to get gas?
Well, Americans are actually one of the few countries that might be most insulated from the energy disruptions caused by this war. I think a key lever that Washington hasn't pulled, it's probably very reluctant to pull it, would be to limit exports to other countries because we can sustain ourselves. The pain is actually being felt most acutely in other parts of the world, namely Asia and Europe. And there, to your point, the last barrels that came out of Hormuz before the war have already been offloaded. Hormuz supplies about 20% of the world's oil. Now, Saudi Arabia has been able to divert some of those barrels out through the Red Sea. But guess who's waiting there? The Houthis. And exactly. We saw what they've been able to do in terms of disrupting traffic over the last few years since October 7th. They haven't yet done that, but that's a card that I think is waiting in the wings. I think what that means for the rest of the world is we're starting to see governments pull out of reserves, but there really is no plan B. All the shift to renewables, that's a long-term process. And so there will be this crunch, and it's going to hit the poorest countries first, the ones who can't bid for those much more expensive barrels.
Claire, quickly, because we can't end this panel without this. Does that mean that we should be expecting military operations to resume in Iran? Are you on high alert right now?
I'm definitely on high alert, especially since the China trip is ended, because there was some thinking that Donald Trump was going to wait until that was over before resuming military strikes. But I think right now the best card that President Trump has to play is this blockade, the naval blockade of Iranian ports, because that really is squeezing Iran's economy, which is already teetering.
Ginny Welch and Laura Seligman, both with bad news this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.